has a head and it has a tail. The tail being very thin, the head being the fat part, okay? So the first thing I do when I clean a tenderloin is I flip it over and I use the back of my chef's knife and I scrape off some of this excess fat, and it comes off very easily with nice sound effects.
Genuine sound effects.
Genuine sound effects. This stuff can be ground for hamburger. It does have quite a bit of fat, but when you buy hamburger, it's 80-20, 80% protein, 20% fat. So I just go through there and pull it off, because some of this fat is gonna melt and be good, because what does fat do? Flavor, tender. All right, not too much off. Sometimes I have to get my knife out if it's a little cold or strongly adhered. Then I flip it back over, and I'm going to use my hands to remove this part, which is connected to what's called the chain. So I'm just using my hands. Some people use their hands the whole time, and if you can see the chain connected by just little strings, tendons here. So you can use your fingers, or you can get your knife and just follow that along. Starts to get a little tougher. So okay, we have the tenderloin. And we have the chain. The chain has a lot of meat on it. I got this much meat off of my last chain.
Oh wow.
7 ounces of meat. So that's more than a half a pound. If we're talking 20 bucks a pound, that's $10 sitting right there. So we need to get some meat off of this chain, especially on the head part. It's pretty easy to separate this part of the meat. And I'm just kind of scraping, cutting, and pulling. Okay?
Don't be afraid to get in there.
Don't be afraid to get in there. The other parts, you're gonna see a lot of silver skin and a lot of connected sinew and tendons and stuff. But these are just pieces you can kind of go back. If I was a butcher being paid by the hour, handling thousands of dollars of product every day, I would have my final product. I would have a scrap bowl that I would make stock, add it to my stocks, and then I would have another bowl which possibly, if I wanted to render the fat down, I could have beef fat. So I would have all those different sections, and the chains, I would just come back and do all the chains like when I was done doing the tenderloin. Because when you're a butcher, you're not just doing one of these. You're doing like 5 cases, you know? So you're gonna have a lot of chains sitting around, and you kind of just go back and do those when you have the time. And you would grind this up. You would have appetizers with beef, maybe like a crostini, you know, which is like a little toast with some beef on it, maybe some blue cheese or balsamic. All right, so then you would go through, get as much meat off of this as you can. Back to your tenderloin. It's kind of phase 1 here, where I I use my hands a lot. And I'm going to use the back of my knife just to clear away any of this fat. Because now we need to remove this silver skin. Remember we saw this on the lamb?
Mm-hmm.
All right, you're gonna use your fillet or bony knife. Get right up under there. Angling up so you can grab it, pulling it and letting it just come off. This can be used in a stock. Any of that meat that is left on there can be used in your stock, or it's trash because silver skin is not going away. It does not digest, it does not melt. You got to get rid of it. This can take as many passes as it takes. You know, you can buy these at Costco and Sam's, but then nobody knows what to do with it. I guess you can YouTube these days, right?
So what we can do right now?
Yes, my brother calls me every year or so. Want to clean that tenderloin again?
All right, you gotta pay me. She's asking that.
The first 1-800 dial chef's free.
Exactly.
All right, so then you kind of get, it goes down into this other part I wanted to show you. When you have the head and the tail, the head is called a Chateaubriand. And when the old time French restaurants would serve it for 2 people, it's geared towards table for 2. It would be carved at the table. So you have the Chateaubriand, and then you have the filet, then you have the mignon, then you have the tournedos, and then you have the tail. So the whole tenderloin separated into different names based on the thickness of the muscle. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How's it look?
Delicious.
Delicious. You can eat it raw.
Mm-hmm.
Steak tartare and steak carpaccio. All right, I'm gonna flip it back over because on the top of the head over here is some more silver skin hidden underneath this flap of fat. Flap of fat. So we need to take that silver skin off. Here. Always cutting away from you.
Don't want to slice off any fingers.
Nope.
Yeah, that wouldn't be very tasty.
Fingers are expensive.
That's how you lose a job.
Yep. You ever met a butcher?
Yes. They're missing like 3 or 4 fingers.
Hi. Yeah. Almost all of them are. All right, I got this big old chunk of fat my knife did not get the first time. So I need to see how I'm just letting the knife kind of just help me a little bit. But the natural separations, just like in a chicken, you guys, you know the natural separations and you just follow it along. Same thing with the cow muscle. You can have a little fat there. All right, so now we have pretty much a clean tenderloin. It's not perfect, but it doesn't really have to be because any fat that's left on here is gonna melt and it's gonna give it more flavor. All right? When you're cutting it, you're just gonna cut the tail off. You're gonna use this for your appetizer, maybe kebabs or a stew or a chili or, you know, steak soup.
Just cut up into bits.
Cut it into bits. Or if you need it for a kebab, you cut it into those sizes. And then you can make an amazing chili with ground meat and chunks of meat too. That's my favorite. All right, and then we're just gonna cut these into the portions that we need. The thinner this tornado is, the whiter it needs to be the same ounces as this one. So you can't just be like, oh, it's this thick, it's this thick, it's this thick, and go along. No, you have to know that it gets thicker, so your cut's gonna be thinner to get the same amount on your scale. Okay?
Huh?
I'm done.